Welcome back to another great story. I'm your host, Nick Sandino. Joining me today is longtime attender, two-time employee of the Village Christian Church, and my little sister, Brittany Sandino. So sit back and relax and enjoy another great story. So the reason the intro goes as long as it does is because this royalty-free music, that's my favorite part when it builds right there. So I always have to wait long enough for it to get to the good part. You know? So joining me today is Brittany. Brittany, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 35. I work for a company based out of Romeoville, kind of like on the sales support side, and work from home out in the country, not far from where we grew up. And
Anything. It's up to you.
Anything.
So think about like this. I'll ask you a question because I said the trick is we know a lot about each other, having been siblings for 35 years.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you do.
I problem solve and simplify processes and keep our sales team on track with their projects or with miscellaneous paperwork or following up with customers, little things like that. I just keep people organized. And if something doesn't look like a smooth process, that's my favorite thing to do in work is being like, hey, let's revamp how we're doing this. Let's simplify it. Let's make it easier and more efficient.
That sounds I think of it from how do you measure that? That seems wild to measure accomplishment when you're the in-between problem solver.
Yeah, I look at what is not working and will vocalize, hey, there's a lot of frustrations here and this is making this inefficient. And these people could be out selling way more if we made this back end really efficient. And then when I implement something, I'm like, hey, have you noticed how your team then, they have trust in their back support?
Oh, okay.
And
then what they're selling is unconventional sales because you're selling underground ponds. That's not what you would call it.
No, I heard it explained like concrete Legos underground to store water.
Right.
Yeah.
So way back in the day when I was still a laborer, where they were making those products, I had to check trucks in and out through the night because we were delivering. They were also making concrete barricades.
Yeah.
And so where they were making the concrete Legos, your words, my job was to be awake all night and strap trucks down and keep an account at utility.
Yeah, and they're still our number one precaster that we use. Because we're all over the United States, so I have a team of
support. And that's
support.
been in the last, 10 years that it's gone all over the United States?
Oh, 10, 15.
Because initially it wasn't. It was just local.
Yeah. It started out of Morris, Illinois, and then as this kind of grew as a new company out of utility, kind of expanded, then they relocated to Romeoville for separate office space, and then it's really just kind of taken off from there.
Did you see yourself working in this sort of thing?
No, not at all. But Keith Pfeiffer for I think it was back 2018, 2019 would send me job descriptions.
Right.
And be like, how happy are you? And I'm the type of person that it doesn't matter how happy I am at a job. I will always consider what you're offering to me as long as it's somebody like Keith, who I really know well and who I like. And he would send me jobs that were accounting manager. And I'm like, hey, just because I work at a bank doesn't mean I'm in accounting. That's not the right fit.
Because that was the background, was initially medical billing.
Was what I went to JJC for, and then I did an internship at the hospital, and it was being in a basement, not seeing people all day, and I was like, this is...
Oh, I didn't know you did an internship there.
Oh, for a few months, and I could do the job. But
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, and I was like, this isn't going to work, and I've just spent... I took the long road and worked full time and took 5 years to get a 2-year degree. And I was like, I've just spent 5 years investing in this career and it sounds miserable to me.
Right. Then landed at a bank.
Then landed at a bank real quickly. was just surrounded by people who like invested in me and showed me how to network, showed me how to like talk to people and show them like, hey, we have something that you need, and how to kind of communicate that really well. And I wasn't even there a year. And Mark Gorsh, who comes to this church,
right,
who I babysat for, I remember you were like, hey, like I've had conversations with Mark, like what you're doing is significant. And I'm like, no, it's really not. Like I make $11 an hour. I'm poor. I like am killing myself here. Nobody's going to notice. And then Mark called me and said like, hey, we've got this job opportunity. Any chance you'd like want to come talk to us?
Different bank.
A different bank.
So that wasn't the bank. I couldn't remember that. I didn't know if the first bank was with Mark, who Mark's attended the Village forever.
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly, but like they got married, moved to Pontiac, and were driving all the way here because they knew they were going to end up in this area. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and he just like invested a ton of time into me.
yeah.
And I grew so much and did kind of similar what I was doing here is like they needed help. They didn't know like how to define what they needed. And they just said like, come in, you'll get to learn a lot about banking. It's a small community bank. And then you kind of tell us like where your interest is, and we'll kind of like help steer you that direction.
Right. So then from there, then you end up Long Road, that bank, then another bank.
No, then I worked for like Edward Jones for like a hot second. There just had been some changes at that bank where I was like, and I was doing ministry and I just was fried. Like,
yeah.
It was just a lot to do both.
What year was this?
I left and went to Edward Jones January 4th of 2021.
Which was a way slow down.
Yes. Hard shift. I had actually ended the year interviewing with Storm Trap in 2020. Didn't get it. Really thought that's where I belonged, and was really like kind of disappointed and heartbroken. I didn't get it, and I didn't understand why. Not so much with the company. Like I kind of understood why they went with the other person, but I was like, okay, God, like I'm trying to trust you here, and you like made this seem like it was going to be it. So now what? And
it's kind of like the title of your book. So now what?
Yes. It's just like continually like, now what?
Right.
Yeah.
So then we joked, let's shift gears and talk about ministry, because, and I'll set you up on this, but I don't know the year. Do you know the first year you went to our high school summer conference? 2010.
Bennett was like 3 months old or something.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I would have bet that it was before her.
No. You were like, hey, Lauren, you had kind of like bugged me about it leading up to that, because Lauren and Candace Baker had both been like very pregnant, and you're like, I can't have them around students anymore. Like,
oh, this is like all coming back because I didn't remember any of this. So I'm trying to think. I started full time in like 2009. Yeah, January of 2009. Jake Raymer and I were doing junior high summer camp together.
Oh, I remember
with
that.
25 kids, and we were cooking, doing activities, preaching, and leading worship. And we were not well. It ended when a girl had a seizure on the last day, and her mom said, we forgot to tell you that she sometimes does that. I was like, we're out. We are done. No. He's like, next year we'll go to Little Galilee. Then I think CIY fell in the mix on that somewhere, and which was the only thing that they had really at the time was CIY Move. You and I had grown up going to that in high school.
Yeah.
Never at the same time. But then I don't know. I never had Lauren and Candace there. So it must have been one of the first ones I had to have a female lead. Yes. And they were both expecting. And it was like, hey, you were actually going at the time, Manuka Bible.
Yes. Because I knew I needed to find a different church, and had grown up at a church that was like very self-served to everything that I needed. It was all about me. So when looking for a new church, I looked around and I thought, what is going to best serve me? What's going to have all of the small groups, all of the programs that give me what I'm looking for and I need? And so Manuka Bible I knew people going there. I had friends going there, and it was a bigger church. And the Village was where like you and Mom and Dad were, and Lauren, and I wanted some separation from you guys, but also like the Village was very messy. People were very like,
even like literally it was in a school.
Yes.
Like where stuff broke.
Yeah. And there wasn't anybody like my age or in the same place of life, and you would make a lot of jokes about it. And I remember being like, I was 19, 20, and you came over to the farm after church to have lunch with Dad, and you're like, you made some type of comment, and I remember snapping at you and being like, can't you just be happy I'm like still attending a church? And you're like, you looked at me so seriously, and you go, no, because you've been there 6 months and you're not getting involved. And I'm at a church where I really could use somebody like you and would put you to work immediately. And I had never thought about serving for the sake of other people. I always thought like, oh, I'll serve and then I'll like make friends and it'll be beneficial to me. Oh. And I didn't know that anybody could desire my help.
Well, see, the thrill of this is I don't have any memory of any of this. So it's all like fresh all over again. I mean, I remember like some of that, but I didn't know like how to develop leaders. I didn't know how to like invite to a team at all. So like in my mind, it was, I remember having the same conversation with John Howard, Anna Hainzinger at the time, who then married John, Anna's brother, Nate, Caleb. I'm trying to think if there was any others. And I was like, they were like, there's nobody else our age. And I was like, well, if you don't stay and invite, there will never be anybody your age. Right. And I didn't mean it as a guilt trip. Like, you have the option. But yeah, I was also like, who do you want me to take to CIY? Like, it's either like there's nobody. And I think that was the sales pitch, was you'll have fun at CIY. Like, I don't even care if you go back to Mission. Just come with me to the conference.
Yeah. And CIY was like my favorite thing throughout high school. Like, it was the 1 week where I thrived and I loved it. And so I was like, anything to do to get back to camp, I'll do that. Yeah.
So CIY, like if anybody doesn't know what that is, and we're referring it to CIY, that's the organization, but that was initially like a high school summer conference on college campuses all over the United States. And you would have a week at a college campus. That was cool. You stayed in a dorm. You stayed like a college food court, which now sounds terrible to have to eat food court food all week.
But man, in high school, like,
it was the best.
It was the best.
You had Subway, you had Taco Bell,
Starbucks.
You had Pizza Hut. See, we didn't have Starbucks. That came at
SIU got it, and the line would go down the hall, and we'd just stand in line. I'd be like, I got to get that mocha frappuccino. Oh,
that was where. I mean, I never ate so much Subway in my life. Like, I think it's why I can't eat it to this day. Was it the only thing Seneca had to eat, and it was the only thing that you could get a quick sandwich at that you could afford at CIY. And anyway, then you'd have like a week of worship. I remember my sophomore year, in between freshman and sophomore year, David Crowder was the new worship leader they had just hired for that week, and we thought, this guy looks weird. I mean, this is going to be weird. I had no idea he was going to be who he is to this day.
Yeah.
You know, but I knew you had a good experience there. We go in 2010. Mm-hmm. I have no memory of how many we took. What, 8?
2 boys, 2 girls. That's it. And one of the boys I had been in youth group with, like, growing up. He was only like a few years younger than me.
Was that Aaron Post?
Yeah. Because I remember he like laughed when he saw that I was one of the leaders. And for the first few years of going to camp, they would like laugh. The boys would always laugh, be like, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, nothing. I'm going to do nothing about any of the things you're doing.
Was that when you came back then and started serving in student ministry? Was after the week of CIY?
You then did the camp that you did with Jake Raymer for junior high. You asked me to come for a couple of times with that. And that's where I met like Joelle and Violet and Peyton. And they were like little leeches of like, you better be at church on Sunday. We want to see you. We want to hang out with you.
Yeah. And
then you start to get connected with other kids and you're like, well, hey, we're going to kick off Pulse come fall. And I think we did it out at Thompson's Pond.
See, now my timeline's getting like so fuzzy because I can't remember. I know that we kicked off at Thompson's Pond. I don't remember. I remember Faith Trevisano being there.
Yeah.
Just weird overlaps.
Yes. But I just remember those kids were the ones that kept me really accountable of like being at the Village.
Yeah.
And there was kind of just a Sunday where I was sitting in church and I'm like, you know what, God, if this is where you want me to be, like, I'm done fighting you. Like, it's not where I would choose to be, but you seem to be like wanting to use me here. So like, I'm done fighting it. And then it was like maybe a month or two later and somebody asked me like, hey, are you still going to Mission? And I'm like, oh no, I'm like, I go to the village. And I didn't even realize that's what was happening.
Yeah. Lauren and I even went through some of that through like the internship where we had been dating here at the village. And then we had, I had to go intern at Community Christian in Romeoville, and then did some serving at the Naperville Yellow Box at the time. And when we came back, they had moved. How was that? They'd moved from the cafeteria to the little gym, and something had shifted. It just felt like it's that switch where all of a sudden church goes from a place you hang out, a place that you attend, to like really home. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that might sound silly because I had been here since the beginning. Right. But it was like, I'm going to marry my wife, not in the school, but with these people. We weren't going to like set up at the junior high with a pallet of, apple sauce in the hallway, so but that was like the shift. But then how long was it from 2010, you starting to volunteer, that you came on staff? Were you on staff at the school?
No.
So you were just high capacity volunteer.
Yeah, we got to a point where you and we had like something really great going, where it was just like you and I and these group of kids, and you're like, hey, if this is going to grow, we have to like add volunteers, and they're going to be different than us. And then we added Mark and Jess Smith, and they were like copy paste of us, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
And
that was my first shot at it. So that was all. We just brought Brian Zare back to do more consulting with our community pastors.
Yeah.
So Brian was the one who was like, you and your sister, you have to build a team. I was like, I got it covered. I've already got a female leader. And he's like, no, I think you need to reach outside your family. And I was like, okay. And my shot was for Jess.
Yeah.
And she's like, my husband will come too. And I didn't know Mark at all, which was all sorts of insecurity. Now that we doubled our team in Nate Brigazzi's one fall swoop.
Yep. And then like pretty quickly you like added Amy. Amy like came on as children's pastor, and you're like, hey.
See, I barely knew Amy when we added her too.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
No, Amy was the other Amy's volunteer. Okay. So when Nate called me, I could tell you where I was sitting, and he's like, we're going to hire Amy Pelkey. And I was like, okay. Like I wasn't part of the interview process. I wasn't part of we had a tenuous interview process for her because we didn't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And it did feel like this is going to be important.
Yeah.
And the poor gal, like after that, we started ready, fire, aiming on hiring people like quick,
Yeah. But she came in and she like helped us kind of grow the junior high ministry portion. And then we got big enough that we were no longer meeting. The village used to like have an office, and we'd meet for Pulse in like the garage. Mm-hmm. We got big enough that we were meeting at the school at night, and we were doing a Sunday night service at church. And you were like, hey, I need you to go help Amy with junior high. And I was like, I don't want to help Amy with junior high.
Yeah, nobody does.
No. And you're like, that's what you said to me. You're like, nobody does. That's why you have to go. And I remember just being like, I had this like desire to like really teach. And my first small group in like that group of students was Carter Ferguson's like group of friends and him.
Wow.
And I just was like, okay, I don't even know what to do. Like I've always just kind of been like Nick's sidekick and right-hand man and food getter. Like, what can I do really well here?
Hey, by food getter, like if you're familiar with student ministry now, food getter means that you like prepare a meal for 120 people. Food getter then was Taco Bell had a $1 menu, McDonald's had a $1 menu, Wendy's had a $1 menu, and we would pick one of those.
Or Little Caesars.
Yeah, or Little Caesars. I remember when we got Little Caesars, it added a pizza variety.
Yeah.
But like $25, we could feed the youth group.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time it was just out of pocket. We would buy a bunch of burgers.
Yep. I'd load up the like 4 girls that were brave enough to show up in my big Buick LeSabre, and we'd go pick up food. And
yeah. I remember if it was bad weather, I remember just taking like David Scott and 3 and just going to the restaurant and doing youth group.
We would like get fancy and go sit at Culver's.
Yeah. If there was only 3 of them, we'd take them to like Culver's for kids' meals.
Yeah.
But then it was like, so then it was Mark and Jess, and then there was, and I don't know if we've told that story. I should talk to Jess about that, and have her on at some point. Because like the long story short, Mark passed away right. I don't even think there was 1 week overlap when Jerry came on the team. And then it felt like we were about to really grow.
Yeah.
You know, and I still have I just came across at the 20-year reunion the picture of like the paint party.
Yeah.
You know, when we were at the junior high, but maybe we were already under construction here. So it felt like this is the home stretch.
Yeah.
You know, we'll spread our wings a little bit. And so we painted some scene that Lauren, you know, like a paint party,
Yes.
like we just had Lauren do that. That felt like a big expense. You know, do you have any memory of when you started? Was it when you got here then that we put you on part-time?
Yeah, I was taking on more capacity because I remember we were like teaching based off of like a curriculum. And I'm like, well, I could build something better than that and like save us $1,000.
Yep.
So I like started teaching more and organizing more. And I remember meeting with Nate, and it was maybe like 2019. And you had made a comment to me because I was like nervous coming in to meet with him. And I was like, what is this about? Like, what are they talking to me about? And he goes, they think that this is like a calling on your life.
Yeah.
And they like,
I do
see
remember that.
And I was like, I'm just doing this for now. Like, I'm just going to do it right now. Like, I don't think this is, and he's like, I remember you said, like, that's only something between you and God that you can figure out. Like, nobody can tell you it's your calling.
Wow. I don't, again, I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then you come on, what are you doing? What job are you at during this? I'm not embarrassing you.
No.
Were you still living with mom and dad? Or was this like, I think it was like, we'll get you a part-time job, add to your income, and then you can get out.
It all happened at like one time.
Right.
Like I moved into like Patrick and Alyssa's townhouse.
That we've all lived in.
Yeah. Who are Seneca campus pastors.
Yep.
I was working at Hometown with Mark Gorsh, and they're like, we want to like put you on staff here. So I was doing junior high ministry. And then one day I got a phone call and it was like, hey, what are you going to do for the Seneca campus launch? And I was like, I remember it wasn't a phone call. It was a text because I then called you, panicked of like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want to go to Seneca.
Right. Did I send that?
No.
That would have been like Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah O'Sullivan invited you over to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So it's like an arms race. Like when you're, and I'm just learning this, but I don't think that this is customary to a lot of churches that hire from within so much. Mm-hmm. But I mean, outside of, Mike and myself, and I would even say like I came out of Nate's youth group, so really outside of Mike and I don't know who else, like everyone has been an inside hire. Everyone has been the friend of a friend who grew in their faith a bunch here. And we've done a bunch of shows about that because we think it's so central to like our identity. But then it also creates this like arms race. And this is like what I say to like even our central team is like, if you want good people, go chase after good people. Like don't let a good person sit on a shelf mm-hmm. that you see kingdom attributes in, that you see fruits of the Spirit, because like they're going to get scooped up by somebody.
Yeah.
And so that, like you live by the sword and die by the sword on that. Like people wanted you. And the same has happened at Shorewood. Mm-hmm. Annika's doing balloons or something in Shorewood for game day. And I was like, oh, we wanted Annika. Like that was our card to play. And it was like the Uno reverse. Like Charlie's like, I got her. She's coming to help me, So it's like that arms race. I didn't even remember that being a text.
Yeah.
But,
and you had told me, you're like, well, why wouldn't you go to Seneca? It's like 10 minutes from your house. And
well, that makes sense. But I understand at the same time, that all felt so, by not knowing what we were doing, like, I mean, legitimately, I didn't even know what it would feel like or what
mm-hmm.
to do
And I didn't even really care about like the church aspect of it. It was, I had gone to high school in Seneca and felt like Seneca's such a tight-knit community that it felt like I was an outsider coming in.
Right.
And I couldn't find my spot. And it was like, I was counting down the days to get out of there. I don't want to go back.
Sure. Well, and I mean, there was so many things played into that. We could talk another 30 minutes about,
sure.
I mean, is that okay to talk about for just a second?
Sure.
Like, but you got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Like laugh about this, okay? We thought you just didn't. This is so mean. I'm sorry. We thought you just didn't know how to pump your own gas.
Oh, it was so bad. I could not get my gas cap open.
And we were like, Brittany, just go turn the gas cap open. It's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I remember thinking, like, she doesn't know how to open her gas cap.
I couldn't get my car to start.
You couldn't turn the key over.
I had Dad, he was like, I'll spray it with some something to like loosen it up. But like I would have to go into the gas station and ask. My friend's mom was like the attendant. And I was like, hey, can you do me a favor and like come out and open it? Because like I can't get it open.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make you upset.
Like
but that puts a bad taste on high school.
Yes. Like that changed. That like happened like right before senior year. And then like that changed because then I'm going to a specialist in the city every 6 weeks with Mom. And that was like very stressful and a lot. And like we both had a lot of fear. I was on a chemotherapy drug. I was like giving myself shots. It was like super messy. And that kind of kept me, that's why I didn't go away.
Right.
And so there was like a little bit of like, okay, God, like everything just felt hard. Bright side of it is like a month ago, my doctor's like, I think we can like take you off this medication. So like in maybe like 3 weeks is my like final doctor's visit of like, if there's no inflammation.
20 years later.
Yeah. And like I have like
and again, not to play like the dumb disconnected, but I was gone.
Yeah.
Like I had gone to Kankakee. I was coming back going here. Mom and Dad didn't go to the Village on the onset. And it was self-serving. Like I just had my own direction.
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't even know. Also, we were on limited minutes on a cell phone plan. I had ran up a bill on texting when they were 10 cents a piece. So like I wasn't even like talking when I would leave for the week.
Yeah.
You know, like it was like a complete disconnect of what was going on in your life on that.
Yeah. And we were like 5 years different. And when I'm in high school, like you got married when I was a junior in high school, like in between junior and senior year. So like we were in very different, like I have a twin brother and it like growing up, it was a lot of like Nick and the babies. Like,
yes.
There was a lot of that. And I think getting to do ministry with you the first 10 years, that changed our dynamic.
Yeah, it was the first time we'd hung out.
Yeah,
like, as
we were like
adults.
friends.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was just like the 5-year gap. Like twins were busy.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to go out and do things to help on the farm, to mow. Lauren would babysit.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah.
You know, before Lauren was anything to me, I was like, whatever, get somebody to watch them. I'm going to go mow ditches and farm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all that puts a taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, all of that like has an impact on, I don't want to go back. I didn't want to go back.
Really?
Oh no.
And you like so loved high school.
Oh, I loved high school. I just, what year did Seneca start? 21?
21.
So, it was 18 years after high school. So, I mean, I had changed quite a bit in 18 years. I was a believer in high school. You're just not very polished. You're just not very good at sharing your faith or being, you know, all these people had known me through sports, through dating, through just being dumb. Not like a catastrophic dumb, but then you have to go back and it felt like I owed them more of a backstory.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't seen somebody in 18 years and then they come in and they tell you what you should do with your life, that you should surrender it all to Jesus. I don't know if that plays well if they don't know your backstory.
Yeah.
So like my insecurity was like, these people know more than the audience I have in Manuka. So it was just like I have a phrase in my mind that I won't say on the podcast. It was like, don't go back there.
Yeah.
You know, anywhere probably but there. And at the same time, like, and this is not my calling. This was something that was, you know, literally working on Sarah's heart. She had moved there, working on Nate's heart, you know, but I felt this burden that God was going to take me away from here to go do small church ministry in a small town. And I didn't want to leave this. Like this is a dangerous place to be, but we were finally comfortable. And it was like, he's not going to let me stay comfortable, and I'm going to have to go back to Mazan, and I don't want to do that. So then, like, the deer in headlights look that I gave Nate and Sarah was when they said, we're going to start this church over there. And I was like, great. This sums it all up. Like, this hems it all in. Just don't let me go over there. Like, that'll be fine. But Pat and Alyssa then are here, and, there's a lot of, then you look around, there were 75 people coming from Seneca here, or 50, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, and then there's like the jarring, I know what it's like to start a church. Everybody's optimism. Nobody remembers, like, the work.
Oh, yeah. And we're 3 years in.
Yep.
4.
4.
4. And it still feels like.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like we're just getting started.
Sure. It feels like you just got, like, some healthy runway now.
Yeah.
That's not an insult on the first 4 years. It is an absolute grind to build.
Yeah.
To add teammates, to add volunteers. So we call a volunteer a teammate. Mm-hmm. We call, like what you at a minimum did was coach and then became like a ministry champion, So like that got messy in there on like the timeline of all that. But yeah, that would put a bad taste in your mouth to go back to Seneca.
Yeah.
How long was it till you felt comfortable at Seneca? Or did you start on the onset at Seneca?
Yeah, I was there on opening day. I remember going with Ian Wilkinson to help set up some stuff. And I had grown up with Alyssa. We were in dance class together as little kids. I remember her coming over to the farm with her dad, Pat, and us being outside together and playing. But being there, and I went to high school with both her and Patrick, but I just didn't really have a friendship with them. And that really got built that year being there.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. And really was surprised by, I really like being here.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. I wish I journaled or something so I could remember these things.
Oh, I have piles of journals.
No, I have piles of journals that have the first 3 pages written in them. And then they're really nice after that and clean. But I'm like, you can't date something 2010 and then put a date in there of 2022. Oh. So I buy a new one.
Yeah. No,
I'm
don't
like,
do
we'll
that.
start over.
Finish it.
No, I've never done that. It's a lot to start it, knocking on the door 40. So, yeah. So then you pretty quickly, we're still under the, here's the other thing that I think just stole a lot, because you worked at Seneca for a year or less.
I made it a year there.
And then stepped down.
Yes.
So, and that was reasonable, but I remembered you saying that you were done, but you were emotionally done.
Yeah. I was just fried.
From 100 things. I think COVID played a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Because there was a guilt of I'm making money here and I'm not able to do anything. And I think lots of us felt that.
That was weird.
We kept people staffed. There wasn't layoffs. And the church did really well considering what it did to some people. But that was a mental, I remember I hadn't hugged Amy in 6 months. Yeah. And I remember Amy was I don't know what we're doing here. This feels like I don't see anybody. I don't talk to anybody. I collect a paycheck.
Yep.
And it was so disconnected. I think that played a part of it.
Well, and I turned 30 in 2020.
Did that rattle your brain?
Oh, I thought I was going to be done having kids and married and.
Yeah.
And then you're and then I had moved out to the country in 2020, the start of COVID. The weekend COVID started, I had moved out to Verona again. I was no longer living in Morris. And that ended up being a gift.
You've been in that house since 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, I would have never guessed that.
I know. It's flown by.
Yeah. I didn't know you'd lived there that long.
Yeah.
But, for perspective, everybody has this fantasy of living out in the country until it's midnight and you hear something weird and there's a storm.
I would be lying if I said I haven't called Dad and he's come over in the middle of the night.
Right.
He has.
Right.
And he's
Lauren doesn't lock our house unless I go to a trip. And then she locks our house and she's like, I didn't really sleep with you gone. I'm like, well, I don't sleep while I'm home, so.
Yeah, I was bad at locking my door, and then I finally got one of those like smart keypads because my friends Kevin and Nicole were like, "This is ridiculous. Your house is never locked, and you live in the middle of nowhere." Like,
yeah, I know, but all of those things like are mental curveballs. Also, in the meantime, with the Lord's going, like trust me, but you don't know what you're trusting Him in.
yeah.
So you step away from ministry, and you went to another church.
I did. Yeah, it felt, and that was like, there was some kindness of like, I had a conversation with Sarah O'Sullivan and Patrick Ugolini, and they were like, because as soon as I stepped back from like being on staff, like I was being like, hey, like people were coming to me and being like, hey, serve here, serve here. And Seneca's a smaller congregation, and I'm like a people pleaser at heart. And like, I knew I couldn't just like get messy and process stuff with the Lord and have all of those people watching.
Sure.
So I went to a church in Ottawa and would just sit in the back and like not really be noticed, except for I'm like had kind of met these people who lived down the road.
You
from
had
me.
the repeat all over again of mission.
Yes. Yeah. I saw like my friends Kevin and Nicole were there. They were dating at the time and now they're married. And, but like they would take me out to lunch and after church, and I would just like sit there and like not do anything but like process things with the Lord. And there was once that they have a fantastic youth group over there that they're doing some really great things, and they would advertise that on their loop in the morning.
Yep.
And I remember sitting there and Brianna sitting next to me, and I didn't say a word, and she goes, "Not yet." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "You're not ready. Like the Lord is being kind enough to let you rest and to like work some stuff out with Him. You're not ready to get back into ministry." And I was like, I didn't say that. She goes, "Yeah, I know you didn't say it, but like that's where your heart is, and like you will go back, but like not yet."
Did you think the time you would go back there?
I didn't think I would ever step into ministry as like a calling or as like a career or a job. I thought I would just be a body to serve somewhere.
Oh, I remember an old youth ministry friend, like who would call in frustration, and I'll leave his name out of it because he actually, I think, did this. But we would joke, man, if we could quit and just go be volunteers, like we would be the best volunteer they had.
Yeah.
Like I would be the best from 6 to 8 that you had. And then I wouldn't think about it again for the rest of the week.
Yeah. I thought I could at least do that. I could show up and be a body.
Right. Just show up and be a body. Be great relationally while you're there.
Yes.
Clean up. Make the friends.
Yes.
All those things. Like some of the best parts of student ministry are the friends and the team and, like all those people you get to hang out with. Like that's what, makes it fun. That's where I think that is why God equips. That's why God builds the church the way He does, to be this body. When you read that language of body and then you start to live into that, it's quintessential to what you're doing, But then how long was it over in Ottawa? And you've always preferred driving, so now you drove like equal distance just west instead of east?
Yes. Yeah. I was there for about a year, probably not even. And I remember there was like a day where I realized they recognized I was there and they were like, "Wait, why aren't you serving? Why aren't you in ministry?" And I was like, ugh. And I had a conversation with a friend and I was like, I think I need to go back to the village. Like if I'm going to serve, I don't know.
Was that friend mom?
No, it was Brianna.
Oh, really?
And she was like, "Well, I've just been waiting for you to tell us we're going back there. Like, I don't enjoy driving 45 minutes to church. I'm just going to be a support."
Well, then we'll pick up the pace on it. So you come back, you start attending at Seneca.
Yep. In like January, February of 23. And
was Sarah still there or had Pat taken over?
Sarah was still there.
And so then I don't even know the timeline of when Sarah stepped away and Pat. It would have been 1 year ago.
Year. She was there the whole year. But I
of
think
23
of 23, but that summer they had announced it. So by like being there 6 months, they announced Patrick was going to.
But even that was like as hard as that transition is to see Sarah step away. Like there was so much uncertainty. There's a real comfort of within, of promoting within, of building within. 'Cause it's like next, like to have Pat step up into that.
Oh, and it was like no shock. Like I had conversations with mom and dad and they're like, it's a matter of time before a young like family comes in and leads this.
Sure. And Alyssa is such a like perfect
Yes.
like wife in ministry.
Yeah.
Like in just all of these like wonderful attributes.
Yes.
Like her and Bev, I think, are the best wives at this. Like they're so good. Bev is Charlie's wife, and they're just like the support system that is bottomless, like infinite. And so it just felt so, natural. And you and Pat and Alyssa were close.
Yeah, really close. I mean, Alyssa and she is like the person that I go to. Like we'll voice message each other constantly, or just like it's like there's like even without saying things, there's like a look when we look at each other of like, I know you're in this with me.
Yeah.
And it's like
she's unrelenting in her pursuit of friends.
Yes.
Like she never takes a day off of loving people.
No.
Like she never burns out on loving people. At least it doesn't look. She does such a good job at it.
Yeah.
So it was like a wonderful chemistry like to have over there.
Yes.
When you hindsight look at it, do you see all the things that God did preparing you?
Yes. Yeah. Even in like the job I'm at now, like there was like a year span of like I had first, interviewed with them, and it was a year later, and they called me and said, "Hey, come back." And in the last 5 years, like if there's one thing that the Lord has like taught me is like, I just want you to know I'm trustworthy and I'm good, and it's never going to look like you think it's going to look.
Yeah. That's the hard part. It's not going to look the way you think it's going to.
Yeah.
But man, like now you've been back on staff for a whopping 6 months. you know? Because, so I'll fill in the details, because you're like, I'll start doing student ministry over here.
I'll just be a body. That's what I said. I was
I'll
like,
be
I
a
can
body.
be a body.
And that went from borrowing, not renting, borrowing the old high school on Scott Street, the West Campus, with, 14 kids. Yeah. And 3 of them were mine, and one of them was too young to be there. Yeah. And 4 others were Savannah's or cousins. And to now, what's your biggest night you've had in Seneca? It's not a numbers game.
It's not a numbers game. Thanksgiving feast was 98 kids, and I stood there and couldn't keep it together because I was like, this is.
Well, to me, if you want the part that will make you not cry, I don't know how you got Mom to volunteer.
Oh, I thought she was playing a joke on me.
I did too. I thought it was.
I was like, this isn't funny if you're joking around. I just had 5 volunteers tell me that they aren't going to be here. And at that point, I had 40 kids that were coming. Right. And I had 5 volunteers for good reasons. They're all going to do Rooted, or they were going to go work. And Mom goes, no, I've been my mom watches Nick's kids, and the youngest went to kindergarten this past fall, and she didn't handle that super well. It made her sad. Right. And she was like, the Lord just told me well, then go help your daughter. She needs help. Right. And I was like.
So you started a kindergarten youth group.
Yeah.
Tailor-made for my mother.
Oh, she buys crafts and.
Right. She's got
note cards with the Bible story on it that she'll show up with.
Yeah, she's got Collins and Atlee, and I don't even know the rest of them.
Sometimes
Hazel.
Who's gonna be 4 and has a slew of.
So this is the unconventional. Our Wednesday nights used to be 4th and 5th grade. And then it was we'll do all student ministry on Wednesdays in Seneca. Yep. And there's still some kids that share over in the Minooka here and there. But then people started dropping off their 3rd grade. Yeah. And then their 2nd grade. And then it's just full boat. There's kindergarten through 8th.
Yeah. I mean, we ended last spring with random kids showing up. So it was if this is what the community is showing that they are needing.
Right. Why keep them? Why bar the door?
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, we can set something up for this kindergarten through 4th grade age group and do it well. And so I called my friend Nicole, who's a teacher, and I was like, any chance you could pull curriculum? And she goes, oh, I've got access to tons of free curriculum. And so we've been walking through the Bible, chapter or book by book, and it's great curriculum. And
who'd you get that from?
Nicole pulled it out.
Of where?
A free resource that she has as a teacher. And she like went through a lot of different curriculum and would send me different ones and be like, nope, that's not good enough. And she pulled one that it piggybacks every week on the next lesson. It has take home stuff for parents of like, hey, this is what what we talked about. Here's what like the verses. And then there's like a Bible verse each week that for like this month, this is your Bible verse. And so there's a Bible verse, handout, and there's a craft, and then like I just kind of like package it all together. It's really like Kid Village on a Wednesday night is what we're doing. And so I package it together and I give it to, my mom has kindergarten through first grade, and then like Whitney and Angela Mann.
Oh, what a godsend Whitney and Angela have been.
Right. Like, and they handle this like second, third, and fourth grade group that is massive. It's like 30, it's like 25 kids.
And those two women are like driven, and it doesn't steal from their joy.
No. Yeah. They just
I just love them so much.
Yeah.
Your team in Seneca is so fantastic.
So fantastic. I mean, we've got Roy and Ken and Lori.
I didn't know they were still helping.
Yeah. They came, I didn't ask them. Like, they were like, hey, I think you need help. And I was like, yes, desperately. And they're like, we'll come back. And I was like, thank you, Lord. And then you've got, young guys like Cole Babcock who are back. And he just like has a passion of like really discipling these boys. Kate Coons, she like is probably like, I think if you would have asked her, hey, will you be in student ministry? She'd be like, no way. And then she like taught one night, and I was like, hey, you've got like a
she can do it.
She can do it like naturally. Yeah. And then you got John Ugolini, who is kind of spearheading our high school ministry. Good. And that's out of his comfort zone. And I'm like, hey, welcome to the team. Like, the place that the Lord will use you most is the place where you're like, I don't have the natural gift or talent to do it.
Right.
And like, he doesn't want your gifts or talents. He wants to like use you.
It's pretty exciting. It's like, for perspective, you're pulling as many on a Wednesday night, K through 8, as you are on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
I mean, it's a church within a church, which we say that in the best way, not in sort of some divisive way. We say that in like there is a ministry happening within the ministry that's wonderful. And Nate always says, like, Seneca is our biggest community impact church. It's our smallest attended, biggest community impact. It's the smallest town that we have a church in. It's unconventionally the last place any church plant group would tell you to go to.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what 20 years out looks like, which is never what we get to do if there's anything to be learned from your life.
Yeah, that feels like when you made a comment earlier of you're like, oh no, I'm like just getting comfortable and you're going to like shake up my world and make me move somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've had that fear maybe in like the last few months. Alyssa and I just talked about it Friday, where I was like, I keep thinking, okay, is this temporary? And she goes, we're only getting more invested in each other's lives. Like, you and I and Patrick are doing ministry and it's not going anywhere.
Sure.
And I was like, I feel that. It feels like a dream. It feels too good to be true.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because there's like a handful of people I trust spiritually. Like,
sure.
I'm really like,
I want to make so many jokes that I won't.
You can make a joke.
Nope. None.
Okay. Like, I'm really leery of people.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody's been burnt.
Yeah, like, people are really quick to be like, oh, I think the Lord's going to do this, or I had this dream or this vision. And I'm like, I'm not buying what you're selling. Like, I have to see really good fruit. And they are somebody that I'm just like, I like trust you so much.
Right.
And I feel very like protected by both of them as well, and supported. And I also feel like they've like invited me into their lives to do the same for them.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling when somebody does leave here, because we have a long tenured staff, so when Sarah left, it feels like your sister's moving away. When Carol, retired, to be a grandma, to move to Wisconsin, be closer to her family, it was like, well, now what? Like there's such a tenured here, but there is a comfort also that I don't think is like a spiritual comfort. I think it's like a spiritual. How am I saying this? it's not a complacency comfort. That's the word.
Yeah.
So you're not like complacent. It's like, no, there's a comfort like being directly where God would have you to be.
Yes.
Like this is the right thing at the right time.
Yes.
You know? So it hangs a question, what's on the horizon? And you can't, I know you can't like call that shot, but what do you think's next? What would you dream hypothetically would be next?
I love student ministry, so I'm not saying this as that like I want to get out, but it's so functioning and there's so many leaders in it that I'm not like, I'm just there to show up and like hold babies and shake hands.
Yeah.
Like, but it's not even me like really doing anything with it.
Well, I just had a weird conversation with Brian directly about that. Like it's an uncomfortable thing when you have to start doing strategy and less of the hands-on.
Yeah.
And it can like trick your brain into like, am I not doing my job?
Yeah. I had somebody ask me that. They're like, well, if we're doing all of this, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, here's just the little list of things that I think we could do.
Right.
And that like, I need you, like, I don't need you to, but like the Lord's giving you a place to step up and lead. And like I love teaching. Like I want to do that more.
Yeah.
Like I love that experience of the preparation of teaching is like a very special.
Yeah, and you're talking preaching on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, like just preparing is like, there's like something that happens between me and the Lord that is like very special. And like I thrive in like for that.
Good. Well, that's a terrific place then to land.
Yeah. Is
there anything else you wanted to add? Closing thoughts.
Well,
I mean, think about you're our target demographic in a lot of ways. Think about your age group listening in or whoever. And what would you say to conclude?
It's really easy to be like doubtful of like what God could do when you look at where he's like inviting you to serve. And like, just step into it. Like, just step up and serve and trust it. Like, be so surrendered in whatever, like, the Lord wants to do, wherever he wants to take you, and trust him wholeheartedly. Like, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is to, like, really have a surrendered heart of, like, I'm not even angry. Like, I'm not even withholding, like, anything that I feel towards you. I'm so open to, like, whatever it is you want to do in my life, wherever you want to take me. And I'm not going to get distracted by like the where or the who or the what and worry that it's not going to be a good thing, because it always is. It's immeasurably more than what I could ever ask or imagine.
That sounds like the Bible.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Hey, good job, Brittany.
Thanks.
I didn't have any prep on what we were going to do on this.
I didn't either.
So went really well. I would say this. If you're looking for a place to serve, Seneca's desperate and would love to have you. So is Coal City. So is Shorewood. So is Manuka. Like, just get involved. Everybody serves here, and we mean everybody. So if you're brand new, you're just meeting Jesus for the first time, we can't stress it enough that we would want you on our team.
Absolutely.
We'll walk with you in it. We're not going to bury you. And the Lord's going to stretch you way more than we're ever going to. So we see a lot of potential in a lot of people because that's what the Lord has done in us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of degrees on this stage right now between the two of us.
Associate in Applied Sciences.
To prepare us for what we're doing. But God's been really faithful. So, check that out and get involved. Find one of our physical locations. If you're a distant listener, find a local church near you and just put your nose in there and see what God wants to do in your life. We've got terrific places for you to connect. But I'm going to ask you to close us in prayer.
Oh, okay. Oh, dear Heavenly Father, we're like super thankful for all that you have done, how you meet us, how you use us despite all of the things that we think disqualify us. I'm really grateful for where you lead and where you guide and where you direct. I just thank you for what you're doing here in our church, but also like just globally. We love you and we praise you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks, Brittany. Until next time, we'll see you in another great story. We'll have you back.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us for another great story. Make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss our latest stories. And if you are in the market for a great church home, check us out at thevillagechristianchurch.com. We've got more great stories ahead, and we can't wait for you to hear them all. So until next time, keep living another great story.